Hi, I'm Alan Hills, and welcome to the College of St. Rose's movie review and discussion podcast series, Cutting to the Chase, brought to you by the Campus Radio Club, Radio St. Rose. I have an exciting update for you listeners. While episodes of Cutting to the Chase will still be airing during select airtimes on the Radio St. Rose website, the show is now available on YouTube and has an official YouTube channel. Radio St. Rose is now streaming on Spotify and SoundCloud as well, so be sure to check it out. So for this episode, I really wanted to discuss the new Netflix phenomenon, Bird Box, which has become a huge hit among Netflix bingers and it's become a big cultural phenomenon as well. And there are a lot of pros and cons to that, and I really wanted to discuss that. So I'm going to take a minute to introduce my two guests on this podcast. My first guest is a good friend of mine. She's a communications major here at St. Rose with a concentration in journalism. She is Sarah Clark. Sarah, thank you for coming on. It's great to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me, Alan.
Oh, you're welcome. My next guest is an English Lit major here at St. Rose. He will be switching to communications soon. He just joined St. Rose Television, and he will be starring in his own TV pilot at St. Rose Television in a superhero parody show called The Golden Knight. You should check it out. It will be on St. Rose Television soon. It's going to be really cool. I'm super excited to have him on the show because he is one of the most media-savvy people I've ever met in my life. He is Christopher Odie Odendahl. Odie, thank you so much for coming on, man. It is super cool to have you on right now.
Thanks for massively overrating me. It's great to be here.
I knew you'd say something like that. I'm really happy to have you here right now. So, Bird Box has really blown me away. Not only is it a big movie hit, I mean, it's a big cultural hit as well. People are constantly talking about it on social media. There are a lot of pros and cons to that, but I only just watched the movie because I wasn't interested in it at first, but even after a month, it's still very popular. I mean, Netflix says it's been viewed by over 80 million households, and in a way, I was impressed with the movie. It was pretty thrilling and, in a sense, traumatizing. I have seen scarier than it, but it is a pretty impressive movie, I think. What do you guys think of that?
At first look, I enjoyed the movie. There are a couple things that I wish didn't come out of it, like this Bird Box challenge, which just seems a little absurd to me.
It is absurd, yeah.
Just ridiculous. People going around driving with blindfolds on. Like, this is... Our circumstances are not the movie's circumstances.
Yeah, no.
So obviously we don't live in a world where we need to do that.
Yeah, that's very true. And the Bird Box Challenge was originally initiated in Australia, but you can't really initiate it in one country because the internet's going to take it all over the world. And it was for, people playing video games, to play the video games blindfolded. And that's not really that dangerous, but people took it to the extreme by, doing it in everyday tasks. And someone even crashed their car, which is terrible. And to tell you the truth, I was almost going to do this podcast blindfolded, but then I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to fall for the obsession. But yeah, I just wouldn't go that far as to mimic a movie. It is just a movie. You know what I mean?
I mean, I will admit, I kind of stay away from that kind of stuff. There's obviously a certain genre that's sprung up of Netflix necessities.
Yeah.
Like, Friends had a major comeback the second it got on, to the point where they spent, $100 million to get it again.
Yeah.
All the originals, Bird Box, Bright, stuff like that, Big Mouth. And I stayed away from this for about a month, just trying not to get sucked in because it's massive, but utterly traumatizing in the best way possible.
I know, yeah. Bird Box was traumatizing in a sense. And what I find interesting about it, it wasn't traumatizing really in a horror or a post-apocalyptic sense. It was traumatizing in the way that, this force, whatever it was doing to people. You couldn't see these monsters or this force, whatever it was. They never even showed it, but it made a bunch of people, really kill themselves, and a lot of graphic, gory depictions. That was the real trauma and horror of the movie. Sandra Bullock blindfolded, that was pretty cool, but it wasn't really horrifying. The force or the creatures or whatever that was getting to everybody, that wasn't really traumatizing. It was the horror of really everybody killing themselves. That was the big horror of Bird Box, I really think.
It's it's what I like to call the Darth Vader effect, the Jaws effect.
Yeah.
In the first Star Wars movie, Darth Vader had 12 minutes of screen time, but
Right.
David Prowse did more with that than any other cast member from that movie.
Yeah.
To hide something is to give it more power, or in the words of former Cracked writer Soren Bowie, the thing we are most afraid of is not knowing what to fear. If we leave that element out of it, we're just leaving it to ourselves what we're terrified by.
That is very true. There is a lot of fear in not knowing what we're up against, and it's really cool, how the movie doesn't show that. And didn't you tell me the other day, Odie, that they didn't show the creature because Sandra Bullock said that they looked so cheesy?
Oh yeah, it was supposedly because the creatures themselves, either through rendering or through the designs given by the creators, were supposed to be so ridiculous that it would take away the power of the entire movie if they were to actually show them. They're essentially useless.
In my opinion, that's just lazy writing then, because if you think the monsters look cheesy, just go back and redesign them. That just seems lazy to me.
Yeah, hire other people. You go through as many redesigns as possible until it's effective. And, Bird Box was done so well that I really feel like they could have hired some people to really make it good. And the reason I think that is because Netflix has been hiring a lot of the best directors, writers, and producers in the business. They're not all that popular, but they're still very talented. And, they really could have made it work if they had shown us these creatures. They did say creatures at one point, right? This wasn't really.
I think so, yeah.
It was. I keep saying a destroyable force because I recently watched this movie called Annihilation. Has anyone seen Annihilation?
No, I have not.
So that's like, I think it's in the future. It's revealed in the end that an alien did it, but there's this force that's basically destroying everything and turning people into different organisms like flowers and trees to annihilate them to the littlest bit of them left. It was a really weird movie, but it was very well directed and very well done. But the thing is about Bird Box, the director is a very popular person. Suzanne Bier directed Bird Box. She's one of my favorite directors, and she is a rising female director, which is very great. And in fact, she directed all 6 episodes of The Night Manager. I don't know if you guys have seen that TV show, the spy miniseries with Tom Hiddleston. Seen that show?
I haven't.
It's a spy thriller based on the Jean Le Carré novel of the same name. It's very lavish direction. It almost feels like Casino Royale. It's so elegant, but still, she brought that kind of elegant direction to Bird Box. It wasn't very stylistic. It had a very, everyday feel. It happened in the middle of this sunny day in California. I mean, it had this feel like, it could happen to you in your hometown on any day. You guys know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, going back to the creatures.
Yeah.
I just wish they defined them a little more, or explained them rather, instead of just saying they're invisible, here they are. I liked how they were invisible, so you didn't really know what they were, but I feel like they should have taken the extra step to explain them.
Yeah, no, they should have explained them. And I remember when Tom Hollander's character was let into the house that he had all those drawings. Weren't those drawings of the creatures?
They were, but they still didn't explain anything.
It doesn't
At least
feel like...
to me, they didn't.
I mean, it's the characters, it's the mental state he was in, it's everything and nothing.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, it's... you got to think Netflix is just trying that hard to get Harry Potter. First they give Alfonso Cuarón a movie, and then they bring back the Boggarts.
I know, yeah. And a lot of the drawings that Tom Hollander brought in, they were very good, but a lot of them were like ghosts, and they looked like, a 6-year-old drew them. So maybe it's a good thing that they didn't show us the creatures, because maybe then they would have looked really bad.
Well, I feel like if they did show them, though, that would have maybe ruined the mystery.
Yeah, like Odie just said, yeah.
Yeah, like you just said, it would have totally just gotten rid of that element that really was probably one of the scary factors, if you will, of the movie. But
yeah, it really would have taken away the mystery thing. I really like the mystery thing. It's not done enough in film, but still, that was another reason why I was not really convinced a lot of the times by the horrors of Bird Box. Like I said, I have seen scarier. Years ago, I did see the horror movie The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe. Any of you seen that?
No.
I want to say I have, but it's been a long time.
I will warn you, it is the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Really?
And it's just like Bird Box in a sense, even though it qualifies as a horror film, it's not post-apocalyptic, but it's like in the 1800s. The Woman in Black is the ghost of a woman who lost her little boy in an accident. So the ghost of the Woman in Black, she draws children to their deaths as revenge, depending on where they are. It's totally horrible and traumatizing. But Bird Box was just like that, and it led everybody to their deaths, mostly adults, but it could have led children to their deaths too. And the Woman in Black was, much scarier. So Bird Box was a little hard for me to buy at points when it came to the horrors, but still it was a very well done movie. And of course, it's been heavily compared to A Quiet Place. I'm sure you guys have seen A Quiet Place.
I haven't actually.
Oh
yeah. So I kind of went into this movie with a fresh concept, or I didn't really go in with any prior knowledge of Quiet Place or any of the. I know there's a couple other movies that people have been comparing this one to, so I didn't really get distracted by this is just like Quiet Place except people can't see. So I didn't really get distracted by all that.
I mean, I see the comparison, even though I've only ever half-watched A Quiet Place on my friend's computer. It stands out. It's not just a creature lurking in the darkness like A Quiet Place. There's that kind of... Obviously, there's the suicide creatures, whatever you want to call them, but there's also what I like to call the enlightened, just like the asylum patients and Tom Hollander trying to enlighten the masses, trying to give them what they think they need.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of that in A Quiet Place. The thing was with A Quiet Place, if you speak, you're dead. And they actually show the creatures in A Quiet Place. No surprise, there are no twists in the movie, but it was pretty cool. And, the difference between Bird Box and A Quiet Place, do you know the difference between the two?
I would say that one you can't hear and one you can't see. But
yeah. If you look at the creatures in Bird Box, you're dead. Where in A Quiet Place, if you speak, you're dead. Yeah. And for that reason, that's why I think A Quiet Place was more intriguing, because we live in a world where talking is pivotal, and everywhere they go, everywhere is abandoned in A Quiet Place, which is a post-apocalyptic thriller like Bird Box. It's not a horror film, but yeah, in every little town they went to that was abandoned, they had to be quiet the whole time, and that's what was scary about the film. And not to mention John Krasinski's beautiful direction. I never would have thought that he had that much depth as a director. But A Quiet Place is kind of a mystery, seeing what your characters can do without talking, and that in and of itself, I think, is a little scarier than being blindfolded, because we don't necessarily know what they're seeing. I did like, however, that they filmed it from her perspective a lot at points. They just put a blindfold on the camera. I mean, I've never seen that in a film before, and if I have, I don't remember, because we didn't see that throughout the film. This film was predominantly about that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely I'm not normally a post-apocalyptic guy. I love older Stephen King stuff. The original It, Christine, which is widely underrated. So I'm not used to post-apocalyptic, aside from that amazing piece of work, War of the Worlds, that everybody totally loves.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely. I love Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino. I'm usually more of a stylized person, but to just see basic, in-your-face, I should say horror, is a nice departure.
Yeah, Bird Box was very basic, in your face. It wasn't stylized too much. Sunny day in California, cloudy day going down a creek. In some way it was kind of realistic. But yeah, I love Suzanne Bier's direction. She is a very lavish director, and I have to say that Sandra Bullock was an incredible choice for that role.
She was incredible, yes.
Personally, she is one of my favorite actresses because she's so convincing in every role she plays. She can be nice, she can be mean, she can be neurotic. I mean, she can basically do anything if you think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the whole Bird Box challenge thing is too much. I think we are really getting to a point in entertainment where we need to make movies maybe a little less convincing so that people don't try to do these things. Don't create as many memes as you think you can on social media so that people will create it. I have seen a lot of memes from my friends, and they're funny, but they're not encouraging any challenges, which is good. But I just think we're getting to a point in this entertainment age where, it's just becoming a little too real, and we're encouraging people to do all those things. I just don't know what's going to happen with future movies. But
yeah, God.
Yeah, I know.
I'm speechless at going back to it. The challenge is just, who would think of it? It's kind of like Tide Pods all over again.
Tide Pods,
why would you
never
swallow a Tide
underestimate
Pod?
the idiocy of the American public.
I know.
I
mean, I kind of joke around and everything, and it's it's natural selection, just, ruling out people. But, the Bird Box challenge is dangerous to not only yourself, but to other people. And I also find it really mind-boggling how we have these huge influencers such as, I believe it was Logan Paul. It was one of the Paul brothers who did the Bird Box challenge. Oh, they're still around. They are thriving somehow. Yeah. And then Morgan Adams, who is Ryland Adams' sister, she did it too. Oh. And we've just come to a point where the internet is getting so big that it's influencing all these children. And what are these children growing up with?
Yeah.
They're seeing all of these adults just doing these outlandish things, and what message are we sending to them?
I know. So far, we're not sending good messages, and this question just came to my mind. It kind of relates to your point a little bit. Why doesn't Netflix film have this much influence and not any theatrical releases? But now I know why. Netflix is on the internet, along with all other social media memes. Netflix is internet, social media is internet.
Netflix has become an entity in itself. It's not just something you log on and watch. The expression Netflix and chill didn't come out of nowhere. It's because Netflix is something that everybody views as a necessity, or at least something to be wanted. I can remember when I was 9 or 10 going to see Star Wars: The Clone Wars at a drive-in and having lightsaber fights with my friends in front of the screen. And when you have something that's widespread, something that's an event that you do with people, you give it the influence. It's just a matter of where we put it now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and it's become a norm, like you said, now that everyone has to do it because it's so popular on the internet. And I read this great Business Insider article about Bird Box, and it said it's become such a huge hit because of this term we all learn in communication. We've all heard of FOMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
FOMO,
Yeah,
the fear of missing out. You know, and a lot of people say that's one of the reasons why it's so popular, because one person watches it, it becomes so popular that everyone else has to watch it. I mean, which I think is questionable because everyone watches Netflix and they watch a variety of programs, but I just think Bird Box is popular because it's a well-done movie and because of the social media memes that's encouraged people to do all these stupid things. But that's why I think it's popular. I don't think FOMO is the reason why it's popular. But still, it's questionable. I don't know.
Well, at least for me, like, I watch things and view them to understand them.
Yeah.
So when I started seeing all these memes, which I'm going to say I don't mind a good meme every now and then. I don't actually reenact them or anything like that. So
Right.
I'm not one of those people.
Yeah. I know.
But
yeah.
I do like the memes. So I don't have a problem with the memes. I just think we need to have people interpret them, not in a literal way. But anyway, so I like to just watch and understand, because if you can understand, you know, movies or television shows or whatever media you're trying to view, then I feel that's just enlightening you in a way. I don't know.
I know, yeah, we definitely need to educate people a little bit better. Everyone needs to become a little more media literate. I think everyone should take media literacy in college. That should just be that should just be a basic requirement, because everyone takes the movies too seriously. We're going to replicate Bird Box as best we can. So yeah, but yeah, everyone's becoming a little less media literate. I think they're becoming media illiterate, and I think that's kind of a problem. People are taking it a little too seriously. And the newest controversy with Bird Box is that there's apparently a scene in the movie, I think I missed it, where they feature footage of an actual disaster somewhere in Canada, and viewers petitioned to have it removed, and Netflix said they're not going to remove it.
They actually have removed it since.
Have
But,
they?
Yeah.
Oh, they said they weren't going to remove it. I didn't know they actually did. They said they were
no,
not
it
going
was
to remove
removed
it.
out
Remove it.
It was removed out of respect for the victims, but
Well, why wouldn't you? I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a sensitive issue. I mean,
Well, wasn't there also the question of copyright?
I mean, I would assume
Attached
it's
to
from a
it?
news broadcast or
That's
something
what I would
too.
assume
but-
too. I
yeah,
read something where they were complaining about the copyright as well.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I definitely need to look more into that. I don't think it was as much of a copyright issue as it was a sensitivity issue, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there was some
I
copyright
agree.
there as well.
I agree.
But
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
issues aside, it's still. I'm the kind of person that will watch a movie for a cast. I got the cast list pulled up just to make sure I actually remember what I'm talking about. No,
Yeah.
Faith. But, I mean,
Same.
John Malkovich, always absolutely, utterly insane in anything he does, but
Yeah.
this, a completely different style entirely. Lil Rel making a comeback from a terrible Fox sitcom to another
yeah,
sleeper hit horror movie. I mean, I've seen Bohemian Rhapsody 5 times for a reason, and Tom Hollander
Wow.
is part of that. But this
Yeah.
is something completely different.
I know. Yeah, I love that we're on that subject now. John Malkovich is usually, you know, very crazy and, you know, a funny way in a lot of his movies. But, you know, in Bird Box, he was kind of different. He was a little more serious and a little more down to earth in a serious way. Sometimes he's too down to earth. Sometimes he's a little too insane. Very talented actor. I think he's great. But yeah, I like how in this movie he was a little more serious. And Tom Hollander, on the other hand, he's usually, you know, the dorky character in a movie that you can't stand. Even in Pirates of the Caribbean, he was a little too much of a dweeb to be a convincing villain. But Tom Hollander played a character in Bird Box that was, you know, less dweebish. Is that a word? He was less annoying
Can
than.
be now.
Yeah, I know. He was.
almost reminiscent of Henry Bowers from the original It.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was. Tom Hollander was a little better in this movie than he was in his others, because, you know, he was kind of a scary character, and, you know, he's trying to make all the people, you know, see the creatures. You know, he cared about them seeing everything, as if, you know, you can be redeemed in seeing these creatures, and, you know, I like that. And it was the first time I ever hated Tom Hollander in something without being annoyed, and I think he's a really talented actor.
Were
And
the characters really redeemed though? They died.
yeah, no, well, he think well, does
been freed. They're not dead.
No, they're dead.
Well, didn't he think they were being redeemed? Though, like, you know, you need to see,
He
you know,
thought,
yeah,
but
he thought they were
sometimes
being
what you
redeemed.
think and what will actually happen
It's
are
beautiful.
two different things.
I hated him so much in that movie, but that's why I thought he
So
was great.
you wouldn't give him your children. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, no one should give him their children. They shouldn't. But yeah, but I couldn't find the right words, but that was my point. Tom Holland has played too many annoying characters, and I like that in this movie he played, a villainous character in a sense, that you really hated. And what's interesting is he played a dweeb villain character in The Night Manager, which was also directed by Suzanne Bier of Bird Box. So it was their second collaboration, and directors usually tend to collaborate with the same people. So I found that other factor kind of cool.
In case you haven't gotten the idea yet, watch The Night Manager. And this isn't a sponsorship. He's just a fan.
I know, yeah. But yeah, the acting in Bird Box is pretty good. I thought everyone was really great. But of course, it had the usual thing in it. When you see a big group of people fighting something evil, every one of them gradually gets killed off except for the main character,
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, because if in any sort of television show or movie, if you kill off the main character early on, or even at all, people are like, what the heck? And
it always
goes
makes a
wild.
good twist, but it's also not,
Yeah.
Well, for instance, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with The Last Kingdom. It's on Netflix.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
The
really
Last
good
Kingdom.
show.
I haven't watched it, but yeah.
I'm a huge fan of it, actually. I just started watching it a few days ago. And Ulrich, I think that's how you pronounce his name. The main character, he's, they go to battle and everything a lot. So it's kind of like if you killed him off in battle, that would be really bad because, if you kill him off in season 1, there's still 2 other seasons and you just got rid of your main character. So I think that's why in movies and television show they don't do that, because you're going to lose a fan base if that's their favorite character.
Exactly, yeah, that's very true. And there can be examples of movies where, they gradually kill off the characters who are facing an evil force, and you don't like any of them. You don't even really like the main character as much, and then you don't even know what happens to the main character. Have you guys seen The Grey with Liam Neeson?
No.
I have not yet, but I think I get the idea. If I remember correctly, doesn't it just end with him charging at a wolf and straight to black? Or
Yeah, so here's the thing of the movie. Liam Neeson and all these guys, they get in a plane crash. I think, like, they're ex-prisoners or something, ex-cons, I don't know. But they're all these, they're all these jerk guys that you hate. Pretty much none of them have any good qualities. And the thing is, they get in a plane crash, and throughout the entire movie, they're in the middle of, like, the wilderness, north somewhere in the snow and the trees, very dangerous. They're being chased by wolves throughout the entire movie, and that was pretty scary and very well filmed. But all the characters get gradually killed off, and you really like none of them because they're all jerks. And like you said, Odie, in the movie, Liam Neeson tries to fight one of them off. He makes weapons out of whatever he can, and the wolf charges for him, and you don't know what happens to the character. And there's a post-credit scene in the movie where you see Liam Neeson's head lying on the torso of a wolf who's barely breathing. You can hear breathing a little bit. But you see the back of Liam Neeson's head, moving up and down while the wolf's breathing because his head is lying on the wolf. But we don't know if he's dead or alive.
Exactly.
But there are movies where the endings are very non-explanatory and you don't know what happens to the main character, who usually doesn't get killed off, but we don't know. And I don't think we should really care either, because if they're jerky characters, then really who cares? Dermot Mulroney was in it, though. He was like the nice guy because, he had a family who had passed away. He was talking about how, you have to have faith when you're stuck in the middle of a situation, like being in the wilderness around wolves. So, yeah, The Grey is a pretty messed up movie. Great direction, great acting, but the story was a little messed up. So Bird Box definitely did way better in that respect. You didn't want any of the characters to get killed off. Some of them might have had their problems,
that was terrifying.
But they're people.
Yeah, watching that and not knowing how long Netflix credits are going to be, you get to a happy ending with 10 minutes left, and you're just afraid of how much more could go wrong with that time.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, and now that I remember it, didn't 2 characters take off and we don't even know what happened to them?
Yeah, that was another issue that people brought up for the movie, that, like, 2 of these characters just, steal the car and then go, and we don't know what happens. Maybe they're driving around California now with blindfolds on. We don't know.
Are they? I know, yeah. Are they setting up for Bird Box 2, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Probably, yeah, but
they're just like, we're gonna abandon movie and go to reality.
Let's just drop a rapper in the middle of the California wilderness with a blindfold. What will happen?
Bad things will happen if you do that. But if they did make a Bird Box 2, they would definitely have to tone down the marketing a little bit. Less memes, encouraging less challenges.
And definitely, because the memes obviously relied more on, going down a river blindfolded. You don't expect most of the movie to take place 5 years previous. No real, obviously there's connection to the current story, but no real idea where it's going to go.
Right, yeah, I like how they did that. Like, this thing had gone on for 5 or 6 years. I mean, 6 years counting the year that the movie took place. I like how they went back and forth between that time period. Not too many movies do that, and
they
I really
made the
like
flow
how they do that.
happen really well.
The flow,
that's one of the most impressive things that they did with the movie, because when directors decide to do that, sometimes it isn't really constructed well, but I think Bird Box really did do that.
Speaking of Bird Box killing things, most terrifying
I'm sorry,
death.
I said
Let's go. Most terrifying death. What do you guys think?
In a movie?
In Bird Box.
Oh, most terrifying death in Bird Box. I'd probably say, I can't remember what his name was because I watched the movie super last minute, but that doesn't mean I don't care for the characters. Oh, thank you. He's got the list. Odie's got the list right here on his smartphone.
Gosh.
The guy who worked at the supermarket, what was his name?
It was something.
Lil Rel Howery as Charlie.
Oh, yeah, Charlie.
Charlie,
that was the most terrifying death because he seemed like a good character, and, you know, it was in the middle of this simple supermarket. You know, it was the first scene where, actually, no, it was one of the first scenes where all the characters are inside and you think they're safe. And, you know, he thinks he has a friend of his stuck in, you know, one of the coolers. And, you know, that scene was particularly terrifying to me for some reason because you think everything's okay, they got their food, and they're even considering making it a new shelter, but of course they push John Malkovich aside and say, no, you're a jerk, we're not going to do that. For once, John Malkovich is not the jerk. But that scene was particularly terrifying, I just thought.
Charlie was just trying to help.
I know, Charlie seemed like a
big
And then he died, so moral of the story is don't help.
It's a big loss, too. Just the TSA is already suffering enough right now. Let's kill their best agent.
I know, right? Yeah. But of course, you know, it's a toss-up between Charlie's death and, you know, all the deaths that Tom Hollander's character caused. Now that you have the list, what was his name again? I want to know.
Tom Hollander was Gary.
Gary, right. Gary, like, caused 3 of them to kill themselves. Those scenes were, like, just a little too graphic. Just so awful. But yeah, I like the fact that, you know, the kids survived because, you know, in this entertainment world, you know, you'll see anything like, you know, the woman in black, kids killing themselves. They don't really show it, but they show it enough. You know, she causes 3 kids on the beach to drown themselves. She causes 3 kids, you know, to jump out windows. They each get their own windows. Totally traumatizing, but it's a pretty intense situation. A lot of deaths in Bird Box, but hey, they were still staying true to that film formula. But yeah, like I said, a real toss-up between Charlie's death and, you know, all the characters that Gary killed off. But yeah. But still, Bird Box is a really impressive movie. I thought, you know, I thought the horrors were a little questionable. The real horrors of the film were all the characters killing themselves. But still, I thought it was a very, you know, well-done movie. Great acting, great direction. And, you know, the thing is, critics didn't really like the movie either. It's like only a 62 on Rotten Tomatoes. And the consensus says that, you know, Bird Box doesn't really reach its fullest potential.
Congratulations on doing as well as you did with Aquaman.
I know, and I loved Aquaman. I just talked about the movie last week. I loved it.
I can't choose like a character death that scared me the most because honestly the film didn't even really scare me. If anything, it was suspenseful. But then again, it's really hard to scare me genuinely, especially with a horror movie. I've been watching them since I was 6 years old. At a point in my life, I stopped watching them because they just wouldn't scare me enough.
Really?
Like, yeah, I got sick of wasting, you know, 2 hours at a time, you know, trying to get scared. And then I'm like...
That's interesting. They've been scaring me since I was 6, and I still can't watch them to this day.
Really?
I'm just that kind of person. But I think for what it is, Bird Box is a great accomplishment, both in film and in pop culture and in social media. So I think that Netflix has been very successful. There are pros and cons, but overall it is quite the phenomenon.
Yeah. I agree.
That's all the time we have, guys, unfortunately. Thank you both so much for coming on. This has been super fun. This has been one of my most fun podcasts ever. Thank you again. It's been great.
Thanks for having us
here.
You're welcome, guys. Once again, I'm Alan Hills, and this has been Cutting to the Chase. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next week.